Hello and welcome to the Learning Experience, brought to you by Trainers Forum. Hosted by myself, Oskar, and Mladen.
Hi everyone, this season Oskar and I will explore the science and art of learning and learning in non-formal education. So buckle up and enjoy this episode.
We're live. Today I'm speaking with Annika Woehr. She is a mindfulness and English teacher teaching online as well as in high schools, very passionate about teaching and learning support and using mindfulness to help students to learn better and create calmer environments. And today we're going to talk about why mindfulness and meditation is super important in today's schooling system. So welcome, Annika.
Thank you. Hi, Oskar.
Hi. It's very weird because you're my mom and usually we speak Swedish, but I wanted to bring you on this podcast because, you are doing something very unique, which is revolutionizing the schooling system by bringing in mindfulness, and you've done a lot of training in this, and I wanted to share why this is important and explore this topic with you. So how are you feeling?
Thank you for asking me. I don't know if it's revolutionizing. It has been picking up a lot in the last several years. Mindfulness is being taught in many schools in different countries. In Switzerland, not so much in the public system, probably because school administrators want to make sure that it isn't anything that's religious, which it isn't. But it's not so common here. In the schools where it is happening here, it's more private schools. But I know that there are schools that teach it in England, for example, and in the US. There are systems in place.
Wow, I didn't even know that was an issue regarding religion being a thing.
Some people think that when they hear yoga or mindfulness, they think it has to do with religion, which it doesn't.
Really interesting. Well, wait, let's take a step back first and explain what is mindfulness so that people can just get on the same page as us.
What is mindfulness?
Yeah.
So we can explain it very simply by just saying that it's a deliberate focus on bringing our attention to the present moment, to what's happening right now. It doesn't always involve meditation, and it could, but it doesn't have to. Mindfulness to be mindful means to be aware, to pay attention, right? That's a word that is part of the English language since a long time. So the practice of mindfulness is practicing to be aware of what's going on right now. So for example, paying attention to our senses.
Oh.
So instead of being all up in our head with our thoughts and worrying about the future or the past, if you are practicing mindfulness, or if you're being mindful, then you're just focusing on what's going on right now. And if you do that, then your whole nervous system calms down.
Ooh. And why is that important for learning, would you say?
I think it's important because if we are calm, we are and focused, then we learn better. A lot of students are nervous when they come into class.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to only be when they have to do tests, right? They could be nervous just being in a classroom.
Especially teenagers, I imagine. Right?
Yeah, it could be especially in the teenage years, because there's so much going on in their bodies, and in their social environment is so important to them, and they are often a bit more anxious than the younger kids. But mindfulness, if you're going to teach it in schools, we should start early, because it's a practice and it can take a long time to really for it to become a habit.
Yeah.
So starting early with kids, it's excellent, because then when they are in those teenage years and maybe they are more anxious and more nervous, if they've learned mindfulness, and then they can focus better and they feel more calm.
Yeah, focusing better and feeling more calm, then I guess they can absorb the material better.
Yeah, because if you're calm and you feel joy or relaxation, then you learn better.
Definitely. And there are a lot of probably trainers or educators in general listening to this podcast, and I'm wondering, why should they care to maybe think about implementing mindfulness into their sessions or their lessons? Is it something that everybody can use?
Is it something everybody can use? Of course, it's something everybody can use because there are so many different ways of doing mindfulness. And like I said, it helps you to focus. So helping people to focus is super important. Um, in this day and age when we are living with so much social media and we have so many technologies that are fantastic, but our attention is being pulled left and right in all directions for most part of the day and sometimes into the night. So by using mindfulness, we can learn to focus longer periods of time. And if you're able to focus for a long time on something, then you're feeling more relaxed about what you're doing, and yeah, you can learn better and you can get things done.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm explaining it well.
Yeah. I think so a lot. I know also that mindfulness is very good for creativity because I like to look at it on the neuroscientific perspective of how I think when stress is down, then the neurons that make you focus aren't firing as much. So basically, like you have more interconnectivity in your brain, and I think that's very cool. That's what mindfulness helps with too. No.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they have done. It's actually scientifically proven now that they've done studies on monks that practice mindfulness. They meditate as well, of course. They've been doing it for years, and they have seen that their brains are different because when you're relaxed and you can pay attention for longer periods of time, then you're using different parts of the brain. You're not in fight or flight mode so much.
Oh yeah.
So you are. It actually has an effect on the brain, which is a positive one.
That's super cool.
I'm not a neuroscientist, so I can't explain the details, but
yeah. And how did you learn about this actually? How did you get into it, and how did you learn to teach it well in classes?
okay. I never knew what it was. I never heard much about it until I started learning how to do yoga. So my friend who taught me yoga, shout out to my friend Jennifer Fry. She's the one who introduced me to mindfulness and yoga about 15 years ago. You can find her on wellbalanced.me. She gives yoga, mindfulness, meditation classes online for anyone who wants a fantastic teacher. She started also integrating mindfulness in the yoga practice. And the first few times it was only about, after we had done yoga, lying on the floor, it was only about paying attention to how the sensation in our feet, for example. And she said, you might find some vibrations, you might feel some movement inside your foot, or maybe you don't feel anything. Just focus on how your feet feel. And for me, that was very strange the first time because I couldn't really feel my feet. But the more you practice this of feeling, so mindfulness is focusing on the sensations, using all your senses, but you can use just one sense at a time. For example, feeling your feet. And the more you practice this, the easier it gets, and the more you just very quickly go into mindfulness, and your body relaxes very quickly once you've done it, once you know what to do. So that I started by doing yoga and mindfulness, and then the more I practiced it myself, the more I realized, wow, I'm not reacting to things like I used to. I don't stress out over things. For example, let me give you an example. If I don't know, I drop an egg on the floor and it splashes everywhere. 20 years ago, I would have maybe freaked out and get really mad. That's the instant, fight or flight reaction that we humans have.
Yeah.
Not that it's a big deal that you drop an egg, but it could be anything that happens to you. You react quickly. Practicing mindfulness, what it did for me was that I just watched the egg fall and I didn't react. I just thought, well, okay, the egg has fallen. I'm just going to clean it up, and it was no big deal. So, this could happen in any instance. For example, somebody gets really angry at me. It's not easy, but if you've been practicing mindfulness, you could just observe and not react back. You can, and through mindfulness, you can also learn to listen attentively to people, to really pay attention when someone talks to you, and yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different examples. So I realized how it had changed the way I was reacting and behaving, and how it made me feel, how I was able to feel more calm, because I did my postgraduate degree in teaching in
What kind of teaching?
2017, and it was a postgraduate degree to be able to teach biology in secondary schools, in IB schools, because I'm a biologist. But in that school, in international school in Geneva, they were teaching mindfulness to students, but only to the students who have special needs. The ones who are a bit anxious.
Only to them.
Naturally. Yeah. There was those who there were some, it was a very inclusive school. So they had students with autism, students with all kinds of different disabilities. And those students had access to mindfulness. And so I started there by observing and then also teaching a little bit of mindfulness to them. And that's, I guess, where it started, my interest in bringing this to schools. So then I took a course. Well, first I worked in another school as a learning support or academic coach. And there I taught also some mindfulness to the students. And after that, I took a class on how to teach in schools. And it's a specific program where we would teach 15-minute lessons at the beginning of a class. And there's all kinds of different skills and tools you teach the students. And not all of them understood it right away, but the more we did it, the more they were looking forward to it, because I think they realized how it made them feel.
The students enjoy it now more?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
They enjoyed it, yeah.
So what kind of things are you using then in those 15 minutes? And what does a typical introduction to mindfulness look like?
We would usually start with, I would take my singing bowl, a Buddhist meditation bowl. And one of the first exercises I always would start with is for them to sit comfortably in their chair. I would give them instruction on sitting comfortably with feet on the floor. And if they're comfortable, they can close their eyes, but they don't have to. And then I would ring the singing bowl. So here, I have one right here, actually. I
can even do it for people, like a short 5 minutes now if you want.
Okay, maybe it won't be 5 minutes, but so if you are listening to this podcast, and please don't do this if you're driving or
walking, or
because you don't want to be closing your eyes if you're driving. So, but if you're sitting in a chair or on a sofa or on a floor, just first focus on sitting comfortably. Your body should be relaxed, but your back can be straight. And if you're comfortable with it, you can close your eyes. And then what we're going to do for the first few minutes is just pay attention mindfully to the sound that you hear. So we're focusing on our sense of hearing. So mindfulness of hearing. So I'm going to ring the singing bowl and just pay attention to that sound until you don't hear it anymore. And I would ask the students to lift their arm or their hand when they don't hear it anymore. So here we go. And then once the students have lifted their arm and they don't hear the singing bowl anymore, then I keep just talking to them and letting them know what they should focus on. So then we might, they can keep and usually they do keep their eyes closed. And we would start by focusing, for example, on our feet and just paying attention to the feet. And you can do like a body scan. So you would start with focusing on the feet and then slowly moving up the body to focus on different parts. But mindfulness, a lot of mindfulness teachers focus on the breath, because the breath is when we're always breathing. If we're not breathing, we're not alive. So it's something that you always have with you wherever you are. So you're focusing on your breath can bring calm, because if you try it, if you're just sitting here now quietly with your eyes closed and just focus on the sensation of your breath, just focus on how it feels when it goes in and out of your nose. Focus on how it feels when it enters your chest, and maybe you feel your stomach rising and falling. And as soon as your thoughts start coming in, because we are human and our minds are always working, so if a thought comes in, don't worry, don't attach any attention to it. Just go back to focusing on your breath. And I would just remind the students to keep focusing on their breath, or then I would bring the attention to the hands, for example. And there's other exercises I would do also. For younger children, I often did some movement exercises. So we would stand up and we would move and do some yoga poses, for example, because if you're focusing on how your body feels as you stand on one leg, for example, on tree pose, then you're focusing your attention on your foot on the floor, for example, or your hands up in the air. So mindfulness, it's so vast, but when you start, you usually try and focus on your breath, because when you do that, you will realize that it's not easy, right? Because your mind wanders.
I really like that. So there's lots of ways of implementing different exercises, from focusing on the breath, focusing on the body, doing body scanning, focusing on sounds or the different senses. And it's just about paying attention to these things so that you have some kind of focus, but it's okay if your mind gets distracted. One metaphor that I really like that a coach once told me is that bringing your mind back from a distracting thought is like doing a mental push-up. Like the more you bring your mind back to the thing that you want to focus on, that you want to be aware about, it's like a little push-up. I thought.
Yep, exactly. It is exercise for the brain. So, because the more we do it, the better we become at it.
Mm-hmm. So it's like mental exercise. Yeah.
It is, yeah. And you can do it if you can also make a practice of it. So if you don't have to think of mindfulness practice as having to sit on a chair and closing your eyes and taking 2 or 5 or 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be that. If you don't feel like today you don't have time, of course, we all have 5 minutes, but if we think, okay, we don't have time, then you could make it a practice. Mindfulness practice could be, for example, when you're making your cup of tea. So sipping your tea mindfully, just feeling the sensation of the warm tea going down your throat. That's mindfulness as well. Or maybe mindfully brushing your teeth. That could be a daily exercise. We brush our teeth every day. We should anyway. And if that becomes your practice, then brushing your teeth mindfully, that's a mindful exercise as well. So it means that when you're brushing your teeth, you're not thinking about the next job you have to do, or you're not thinking about the conversation you had yesterday that you regret or whatever. You're just focusing on the sensation of the toothbrush and the toothpaste in your mouth.
Yeah.
And that brings calm to you.
Definitely. And that helps us be more aware of our actions and less on automatic mode, right? Which is what I like a lot.
Absolutely.
Hello, learners. You've reached the midpoint of the episode. I wanted to let you know that the mission of the learning experience is to connect learners and educators throughout the world, which is the same for Trainers Forum, which is how this podcast is hosted. Please go check out trainersforum.org on the website, or either on Facebook or on Instagram, to learn more and connect with other awesome people. The learning experience is also on Instagram at the learning experience with a dot between each word. And you can also check out myself as well as my co-host Mladen on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you use social media. It's my full name, Oskar Woehr, and all of these links will be in the description. Otherwise, hope you're enjoying the episode so far, and back to the show.
So so how does mindfulness help students? So I would like to go a little bit deeper into this. So there's several things. Students, like I spoke a little bit about it before, it improves their emotional and behavioral regulation. So what I mean by that is that they can, if they've practiced mindfulness enough, they will understand that they don't need to react or respond to a failure or success,
Harshly.
so
Yeah.
so harshly. Exactly. They can recognize that if I failed at something of a test, it's okay. I can keep on improving by studying more, or because you're mindful, you've practiced mindfulness, you don't react as harshly as you did before, maybe. So improved emotional and behavioral regulation. There are a lot of students who are very anxious, and I think these days maybe more, maybe because of COVID, I don't know. But they are anxious for different reasons, and to be able to not attach to that anxiousness, to maybe calm themselves down, regulate their own emotions because they've practiced mindfulness, that's super helpful for them. The second point is it improves their focus. So that's what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And that can, if you have a good focus while you're doing a test, for example, you're doing your final high school exams, you have to be focused on that exam. So if you've been practicing mindfulness and you know how to focus for a long time, then there's big chances that academic performance can improve. The third one is reducing feeling of anxiety. So that's basically what I said before. The practice of mindfulness, it brings our minds and bodies to a state of unity. So we're not always in our heads, because as humans, we are constantly thinking. But when we are practicing mindfulness, then we're not worrying and thinking in our heads. Then we are focusing on our senses. So, for example, you're feeling less anxious because all of a sudden your focus is on how your body feels in your chair. You're focusing on your feet on the floor, and that brings a sense of serenity and calmness.
Yeah, that's probably the one that most people can connect with, since anxiety can be, you can have it at any age, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's where I think you see the results fastest. Because you notice that you become calm when you first start to practice the mindfulness of breath, or mindfulness of sensations in your hands or in your feet or in your butt when you're sitting on the chair. You'll notice that you're becoming calmer, and you can start perceiving your environment more correctly.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And then the last thing I was going to say, it's better social skills.
Oh yeah.
If a student practice mindfulness, they become better at paying attention.
Ooh.
Because that's what mindfulness
Yeah.
is, right? So they are then better at connecting with people more sincerely and deeply, and this improves their social life as well.
Whoa, that's pretty cool. Because then, like, if you're talking about a training session where you want people to interact more, mindfulness basically makes them, learn so much more, because then they can connect with each other more and create more learning experiences.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as a coach, that it's super important to really listen well.
Yeah.
And to listen.
You need to pay attention.
Attentively. Yeah, you have to really pay attention, not only to the words the other person is saying, but just paying attention to the person, the whole person.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
And you can learn to do that.
Yeah, in another episode, that active listening is super important. I think I probably mentioned it in every episode.
Exactly.
That active listening is a really good skill, and I guess mindfulness is super helpful for developing that further.
Yeah, it can help that. Yeah.
That's super cool.
But like I said, and I've repeated it now many times, it's a practice. So if it's something that you see that it would be useful for your students and for ourselves as well, then make it a practice.
Yeah. Like anything, it takes time to develop it. Repetition is the mother of skill, quoting Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Yeah, I really like that. But so, is there any one exercise or way of implementing it that, say, if you just have one session with a group of people, then that's it, that you're done afterwards? Like, is there a way of making it super powerful? Like, so, or making sure so that people can connect with the topic more? Or it doesn't matter how you do it, really?
I think that you need to first decide how long do you want to make your session. And it doesn't really matter, I don't think, well, yes, it does matter. I think if if these students or trainers are beginners to mindfulness, then the best is probably to start with mindful breathing, a breathing exercise, or mindfulness of the sensations. So you can be mindful of what you see, but in general we sit with our eyes closed.
Yeah.
But you can be mindful of what you see, you can be mindful of what you smell, you can be mindful of what you taste, what you hear, and what you feel. So those are our five senses. So some mindfulness practice exercises would be focus on five things that you see. So if you're sitting in a room with trainers, you can, with their eyes open, obviously, you can say, let's focus on five different things that we see. And then you focus on five things that you hear. And then you focus on five things that you smell. Could be difficult. Could maybe just do two things that you smell. And then taste. And a fun exercise to do is to give everybody a piece of chocolate and then mindfully taste that chocolate. But I mean, that means really letting it melt and feel all the sensation in your mouth and in your throat as that chocolate melts. That's mindful eating.
For me, that's the most difficult one.
So there's all kinds of different... mindful eating should be the easiest.
Really?
Right? Because you can just imagine eating a piece of chocolate mindfully, just focus on how delicious that chocolate is.
Okay, it's hard to not swallow it.
Oh, you can swallow it. That's also, you can swallow it and feel how it, when it glides down your throat.
True.
Mindfulness of this touch, that's probably the easiest, because you can then focus on how your different parts of your body, how they feel. And then there's mindfulness of thoughts. That's more difficult, because that is more like an exercise of meditation. Because if you're sitting with your eyes closed and you start by focusing on your breath, your thoughts are going to wander. That's normal. Everybody's head does that. His brain does that. And mindfulness of thought is real seeing those thoughts as if they're clouds in the sky. And you can put if a thought comes in, you can like say, okay, hello thought, and just focus back on your breath. So it's as if you're watching the thoughts. You don't pay attention to them. And it's very difficult, because if a thought grabs your attention, you want to go with it. And then your brain, your mind is not mindful anymore. So mindfulness of thought is an exercise, but it's hard to do. It takes a lot of practice. And then there's mindfulness of emotions. And that one is very powerful. It's not easy in the beginning either, but that is similar to thought. It's sitting in with your eyes closed, and when an emotion comes in, and this one is to be taken quite carefully if you don't know your group of trainers, because it can bring up emotions. So if you feel an emotion coming in, emotions usually arrive in our heads, of course, but they usually create a feeling somewhere in our body. For example, grief, some people feel it in their throats. Sadness in their hips, or it's different parts of the body will feel emotions. So if you do mindfulness of emotions, you might want to just notice the emotion, notice where it is, and breathe into that area to make it. It's a practice of, it's not pushing the emotions away, because emotions are super important. And accepting the emotion and breathing into it. And if it's a difficult emotion, just sitting with it. But this is why I say it's hard. It might not be a good exercise to do with just anybody, because people who've had trauma, who have very, very strong negative emotions, they don't want those emotions to be called up when they're sitting with other people in a room. So that's something for a one-on-one, or someone who's a psychologist or a counselor to do. So I wouldn't do that kind of exercise with other people, but you can do you can call on happy emotions. If you're leading a mindfulness practice, you can focus on the heart area and ask the people to call on the feeling of happiness, of joy, so that they can kind of invite that emotion into the heart area and breathe into that. And that you can add a practice of of
Visualization. Uh-huh.
loving kindness meditation, which is saying positive words to yourself and giving yourself love and gratitude and things like that.
Yeah, gratitude is a super powerful practice too.
Yep, and that's something that I would bring into every mindfulness exercise, because gratitude and positive emotions can help students to feel good about themselves, and that's super important.
Yeah, true. And then you start the session in a very positive mood, right?
Yeah, and if if you are happy, then you learn better.
Yeah, yeah, true, true, true. That's what, yeah, positive psychology has shown that when you're, yeah, feeling more positive and, yeah, just uplifted, then you're a lot more open to receiving information as well, and like processing it's better, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. If we're stressed or scared, then we don't really learn very well at all. We don't remember things.
Yeah. Would you say that there's are moments that you wouldn't use mindfulness exercises, or?
I think it's only the one I was saying about emotions. If there are people who have had trauma, or if you don't know your audience, maybe just don't do that kind of mindfulness. But otherwise, no. I think that we can always use mindfulness at the beginning of any training session, just to get the whole room relaxed
True.
and feeling positive.
Yeah, and it gets everybody on the same wavelength, you could say, as well. Like
Yeah.
feeling the same. And what I like about mindfulness as well is that if you start with a session, especially if it's at the end of the day, then it helps people to like just drop the baggage from the whole day, which has accumulated, and come into the
Oh yeah.
moment a bit better. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's super cool. And how long do you usually do them? 15 minutes, would you say, at the beginning?
The lessons the course I took, it was a 15 to 20-minute lessons. But now with my students I have currently, it's just 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I always ask first,
Yeah,
would you like to do mindfulness?
of course.
I have one student who is, she's very anxious. She can't go to school because of her emotional difficulties with interactions and stress. So she always wants to do mindfulness, and she practices it on her own at home. And her mom has told me that it helps her immensely, that she has become less anxious.
Wow.
Whereas her sister, has no issues with anxiety, she doesn't always want to do mindfulness.
Huh. Yeah, it depends on the person. That's really interesting, though. And that's cool, super cool that it helps her so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
One way that I like to practice, I try to do it almost daily, but I use the Headspace meditation app. It's really good. But there are some.
Yeah,
tons
there
of
are
apps.
some really good applications. Yeah. I used to listen to Calm. That's an app that has some really nice, just natural sounds that I would have put my earplugs in and listen to the sound of falling rain, for example. Then you just feel calm, and you can that's mindful listening.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, Calm, Headspace. There's one, Insights Timer. I think they're all very cool. And in terms of your daily life, yeah, how would you implement that in your daily life then? Do you think? What's a good way for using mindfulness? And is this something that you recommend people to do daily?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you make it a practice, pick a time of day where you do the same thing every day. For example, before you get up, maybe from your bed. Maybe that's a few minutes of breathing and feeling your body. You can do a body scan, or in the evening before you go to bed, a body scan before you fall, and that can help you to fall asleep if you have issues with falling asleep, or too many thoughts going around in your head. Just lying on your bed and closing your eyes and trying to do a body scan, because when we haven't practiced mindfulness,
It can be hard.
you'll realize that how difficult it is to stay focused. But trying to just paying attention to the breath, or doing a body scan by focusing first on the toes and scanning, your focus goes up your body. And maybe by the time you hit your shoulders or your head, you're asleep.
True.
Or you can pick another time during the day. If you do exercise, yoga, or whatever workout you do, you could end it with just 2 minutes. I mean, don't try and do like half an hour every day, because You might get, like with everything that we start, any practice, it's better to start with
I
little,
always say that when
because it's easier.
building a new habit or starting something new, start small, start super small. I think in the Headspace app, they tell you like start with 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Yeah, that's really important. I don't do it right when I wake up because then I feel like I sometimes fall asleep. But yeah, I think it's still hard. It just takes a long time to get used to, because sometimes I have thoughts racing around when I'm doing it, and yeah, that can make it quite difficult. But like you're saying, self-compassion is important in those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't judge. If you can't do it, don't judge yourself. It's fine. You can, I mean, there are some days I don't practice at all, but then I remember, okay, maybe right now I could be mindful. So then all of a sudden when I'm walking up the steps, for example, I feel my feet. Feeling the feet on the floor, mindful walking, that's a wonderful exercise. You just go outside barefoot, or as you're walking out the door, or as you're stepping inside a room. Students going into a classroom, maybe that classroom is the one maybe it's a classroom they're normally nervous in. So maybe they can make a practice of when they step into that classroom, they should feel their feet, because then you're not feeling as nervous. Then you're just focusing on the sensation of the feet on the floor. Or maybe when they put their butt on the chair.
Yeah.
Feel that.
And that really gets you out of your head, which is
exactly. Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool.
That's what it is. It's getting yourself out of your head, because there's so much pulling our attention left and right, right? So if we can just focus on our sensations for, even if it's just 2 seconds.
Yeah. It's probably one of the best productivity tools, actually. I'd say mindfulness. Then you can focus better. That's super cool. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about using mindfulness in teaching?
No, I mean, I know that there are a lot of schools who do it, especially with the younger kids, and I just hope that it gets rolled out to all the schools everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And for people who want to use it, would you say that they should take some classes on learning how to implement it, or simply knowing a little bit and practicing themselves would be enough to help them use it better?
It's always better to take a class, I think, to have somebody who guides you along. But you can start before you take a class. I mean, try on your own with the Headspace app, or just by focusing on your breath. You can try on your own, but I would recommend taking a class with a mindfulness teacher, or someone who can teach you how to do it. It's always better, because there's so many different ways of doing it.
And that probably helps you get the the bigger picture as well.
Yeah, and then you can find which kind of mindfulness do you like best, because we're all different, so you pick the one that you like the best.
True.
Oh, I was going to add something.
Yeah.
If you have never practiced mindfulness and you want to really understand what it means, apart from just what I'm saying, the paying attention, if you've ever played a sport, or if you've ever painted or played an instrument, think back of that experience, and I think you'll realize that whatever you were doing, painting or playing an instrument or doing a sport, you didn't see time pass, because you were in what we call being in the zone, right? You're so focused on that sport, or on that music, or on that painting that you're doing. That is mindfulness. That's pure mindfulness, because you are so focused on what you're doing. So we can all do that, and that's why it's pretty cool to have a creative hobby like a sport or an art. True. Because then if we're really into it, if we really love what we're doing, then we're focusing completely. And you can have people are playing basketball or playing an instrument or painting for an hour and just total focus and not really seeing time fly. That's mindfulness.
That's super cool. Yeah, it's also think that's what's called the flow state, right? What the positive psychologists call flow state. And the idea that I had was, if you're new and don't want to do the guidance, you could just put on a YouTube video, probably. That works well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's super easy. And then play it, and everybody goes through it, which is cool. Awesome. Is there anything else that hasn't been mentioned?
I don't think so.
Sweet. So what would you ask listeners to take action on after listening to this podcast, do you think?
I think it would be fantastic if you can find a YouTube video on mindfulness or an app, check out Headspace, and just give it a try.
Yeah, give it a try for yourself, and then give it a try to show other people, because it's quite powerful.
Yeah. Try it out one day, and then see if you can do it again, and challenge yourself. See if you can do it a little bit of mindfulness every day for a week, and then maybe you'll realize that it does help, and it makes you feel calmer and maybe more focused. But like I said, it's a practice, so don't expect results right away. But there's no harm to it.
Okay, how long would you say people can wait to expect to see some kind of result if they've never done it?
I think if you've never done it, you'll see right away the effect it has on you.
Oh yeah.
Because I remember the first time I actually just focused on a sensation, I could feel myself go calm. But okay, there's people who are calm all the time, so maybe they won't notice it like that. So we're all different, so I don't know how. I would start with just a few minutes, and then continue.
Simple, for sure. Super cool. Tack mamma. Thank you, Mrs. Annika Woehr. Super cool.
You're welcome,
people
Oskar.
want to learn more or connect with you, where can they find you? What social medias or what website? If you want to promote that, this is your space.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm writing a children's book, as you know. And I have a website called Annika's Books. And I'm on Instagram also with Annika's Books. And I have a Facebook page called Annika's Books. So I write blogs, little stories. And my first children's book is written, but it is currently being illustrated. And that book has mindfulness in it because it's a sweet little story of these woodland creatures, and the little rabbit is so worried and so anxious, and his friend the mouse teaches him how to breathe and count to 3, and he learns to mindfulness, and that calms him down, and he isn't so scared anymore.
Super cool. Yeah, check out the book. It's coming out soon, hopefully. And
hopefully, it'll come out in the summer.
Yeah, it's based on a story that my mom used to tell me when I was little. So you should definitely check it out, or at least follow her on the social media platforms. And
I just wanted one more thing. If anybody out there knows a young person or student who has some issues with anxiety, or wants some tips and some help on how to focus better, maybe become more organized in school. And I'm a certified teacher, so I can teach English as a second language. I can teach biology, and I always add mindfulness to my lessons. So I can teach online, obviously. Anybody out there who wants to connect with me can do that by going to my website, Annika's Books, or my email is booksbyannika@gmail.com.
Nice. Super cool. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I love talking about mindfulness.
You're welcome.
So it was super nice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I love it too.